100.4 FM. Has been giving you
with Be With You. And you know something interesting, before I connect with our guest on this one, I was watching an interview of Akon, and he was being asked by the interviewer, at what point did he realize that, Joshua, I've arrived in my career? And he says it's when he came to Zimbabwe. Huh? And he says he couldn't leave the airport. Takazarama Zimbabweans. Ipapap. So he says that's one of the most defining moments of his career, being here in Zimbabwe and realizing, Mama, I made it. So that's Be With You by Akon. Just thought I would share that tidbit with you before we get into the next segment. And of course, we jump straight into it. We get into the exchange. And this evening, I am speaking to Ms. Chinanga. She's with the Fisheries and Aquaculture Resources Division. And this evening, we are talking about aquaculture and unlocking opportunities through fishing. Now, a great story coming out of our sister publication that Zimbabwe's aquaculture sector is gaining strong momentum as Zimbabwe is now nearing 25 million fingerlings as efforts to boost fish productions continue. Now, to take a closer look at the expansion of aquaculture in Zimbabwe and what it means for the livelihoods of agriculture, for the future of agriculture and livelihoods, I am joined by Ms. Chinanga. It is a good evening to you and welcome to the program. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you're well.
Good evening, Rumbi. Good evening, listeners. Thank you very much. It is my pleasure to participate on this important program. Thank you.
Oh, and it's a pleasure to have you. Program. But looking at this great milestone, what does this mean for Zimbabwe? 25 million fingerlings for the country's food security and nutrition goals. Or maybe my definitions. What are we talking about here, and why is this milestone so important?
Okay, thank you very much. When we are talking of fingerlings, we are referring to young fish that is at the size of, an average size of a finger. That's where the name has been derived from. So from the egg, we have fry. Then immediately after fry, that's where we have our fingerlings. And at this particular stage, that's the stage of growth of fish where we can derive our seed for production into our fish ponds, our cages, and so forth. So the name fingerling has been derived from the size of the young fish that is used for production in environments. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. All right. That's where fingerling comes from. Now let's take a look at this huge milestone. 25 million fingerlings. What does this mean for Zimbabwe's food security and nutrition goals?
Wow. When we are looking at fingerling production, it is very important, and it also plays a pivotal role in sustaining Zimbabwe's aquaculture sector through providing foundational, as a source of foundational input that is critical for fish production in the country. So when we have adequate fingerlings available, this will ensure that there is also increased production and productivity of the fisheries and aquaculture sector. So basically looking at the current situation, we are looking at a sector that is rather developing, and as such, fingerling production is, in particular, the quality fingerlings were a bottleneck in the past 3-4 years, and we're looking at the interventions that are happening in the sector. We are realizing that production of fingerlings is actually increasing, and this also will ensure that there is also increased production of fish as well as productivity of aquaculture enterprises, including also issues to do with profitability. Because when one has quality fingerlings in stock, is rest assured to have a better harvest. So basically, looking at this 25 million fingerling production that is happening in the sector, 60.2% of these fingerlings are coming from the private sector. And basically, within the private sector, we have our Lake Harvest in Mashonaland West Province. We also have Kariba Bream Farm in Mashonaland West Province as well, and Radco in Mashonaland Central Province, being the major producers of fingerlings. We also have some few local farmers who are also into fingerling production, and they are also contributing around 14.9% of the total fingerling production in the country. While we have these as reputable producers of quality fingerlings, we also have a significant 14.4% of aqua farms that are actually recycling fingerlings from their own farm. That is, they stock their fish ponds, allow the fish to breed within the fish ponds, and also harvest some fingerlings, which they continue to restock and scale up their production. We also have government hatcheries also contributing towards this 25 million fingerlings that are being produced in the country, to the extent that we are also getting around 1.7% of this total fingerling production coming from government breeding sites. That is our Henderson research station in Mazowe. There's a fisheries unit at Henderson research station where fingerlings also produced. In Mashingo, we also have Makaholi Research Institute, where we have a fisheries unit also having a hatchery in place that is also contributing towards fingerling production in the country. And in Matabeleland South Province, we have Matopos Research Institute. Our fisheries unit there produces fingerlings. So basically, when we have adequate fingerling supply on the market, we are rest assured that there is a possibility of increased production and productivity. And once we have increased production, which we aim to bridge the gap in terms of the national demand for fish and the current production, which indicates that there is a deficit of over 24,000 metric tons of fish that is required for consumption locally. So basically, when we have the good foundational inputs, that is our fingerlings in place, we are then assured that there is room for scaling up and also increasing production, which in turn contributes significantly towards food security and nutrition, as we know that fish is a rich source of the required animal protein in a human body.
Also looking at at fish farming, beyond the nutrition and the food security, it can also be a source of income, and we're seeing that it is being increasingly promoted as a source of income for rural communities. What opportunities lie in fish farming when it comes to the economic benefit, and how can the ordinary Zimbabwean see opportunity in fish farming?
Thank you very much. Yeah, indeed. Findings of the recently conducted aquaculture frame survey, which was conducted by the Division of Fisheries and Aquaculture Resources in collaboration with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. We have also realized that the findings indicate that aquaculture can serve as a source of employment. It can directly or indirectly create employment to the general population in Zimbabwe, and it's estimated to create employment to over 18,000 country in the next 2 years. And the opportunities that are behind aquaculture include having individuals directly participating in production of fish, and it can also create employment to those who are into feed manufacturing sector, where we could have some people being employed in these sectors. We can also have employment being created on retailing of fish, buying fish from producers. We also have informal traders who have also created their own employment through buying fish and selling fish to their respective areas where they stay. So there are so many opportunities that are around there, including also production of fingerlings. It's another opportunity that is there to bridge the gap that is available in terms of fingerling supply. There are also other industries that can also create employment indirectly, but at the same time supporting aquaculture production in the country, including production of plastics for lining the ponds to ensure that there is no water loss that happens in earthen fish ponds. Also production of cages, because there are some farmers who are interested in fish farming in cages, whereby they put cages in natural water bodies such as dams and so forth. So you would realize that there are vast opportunities that surrounds aquaculture in terms of employment creation.
And also out of interest, when we talk about aquaculture, Ms. Shinanga, are we just talking about fish? If so, is there a particular species of fish that we're talking about, or it's quite vast? Because, I was speaking to the listeners earlier, and Chichi, and I like crayfish. Is that something that I can also do under this aquaculture bracket?
Oh, okay. So basically, when we are talking of aquaculture, here we are looking at farming of aquatic organisms, including plants in controlled aquatic environments. So apart from fish, plants can also be produced, such as, for example, we have azolla. It's a plant that can be farmed in water and also utilized for its high protein content for the formulation of livestock feeds, fish feeds, and so forth. Also, crocodile farming is happening. There are some few individuals who are into crocodile farming. It's also part of aquaculture. And when we are looking at fish farming, it constitutes the largest portion of aquaculture because that's where most of the players are found, as compared to crocodile farming and farming of other aquatic organisms, including plants, crustaceans, and so forth. So for fish, basically here in Zimbabwe, the major fish species that are farmed in either fish ponds, cages, tanks, hydroponics, any other method that can be used. We have common species that are actually being exploited for aquaculture, and these include the tilapia species. So under the tilapia species, that's where we get our Nile tilapia, the common Nile tilapia, which is very common on the market. We also have red-breasted tilapia. We also have green-head tilapia. We also have Mozambican tilapia also available and exploited for aquaculture production. In addition to the tilapia species, we also have catfish. It's actually happening, and it's also being farmed here in Zimbabwe. And despite that, there are few breeders who are producing catfish fingerlings. The government of Zimbabwe is making some efforts to ensure that we also promote production and consumption of catfish. There is another species that is being exploited exploited for aquaculture. Then in the Manicaland province, in particular the eastern part, in the eastern highlands in Nyanga, that's where we have our rainbow trout being another species that is being farmed as part of aquaculture species, fish species that are being farmed under aquaculture. So basically, when we are talking of aquaculture, we are encompassing all other species that can be farmed in water, include all other organisms that can be farmed in water, including plants, including fish.
Oh, lovely. Interesting. Iwa. The rainbow trout are a favorite. So I know I'll be contacting you, ma'am, after this. Ndotanga, Osaka, if someone is listening to this program and they want to get started, how easy is it to get into it? What does one need to get started? Let's talk about access to quality fingerlings, affordable feed, and just those basics to get started. Jaka Mira saying, ndinoita sei kuti ndipindewo mu aquaculture, mu fish farming.
Basically, it's important to highlight that for one to engage in aquaculture, the major requirement is water. Like I said, to say this is farming that happens in the aquatic controlled aquatic environment. So you need water. You also need space to set up aquaculture infrastructure. So for farmers or for those who are interested in fish farming within rural areas, they may also consider farming using earthen ponds, whereby they can establish their fish ponds on the land that is available. But for those in peri-urban and urban areas who may have a limited space to actually establish fish ponds, they can actually do fish farming in tanks. They can also do fish farming in tarpaulin tanks. Those plastic tanks, the Jojo tanks. Some farmers are into fish farming using those Jojo tanks. Some are also into fish farming using the aquaponics system, whereby you combine hydroponics and aquaponics together, so that there is circulation of water from the fish, the fertile water from the fish ponds, from the fish is channeled towards plants that are being grown under hydroponics, whereby they are grown in soilless environments. So they will be, the roots will be extracting those nutrients. So the aquaponics system does not require much space. It's something that can be done on backyard, as well as the fish tanks which I've referred to. But for those who have adequate land, they can actually establish or construct their fish ponds. Some farmers from the various communities may also have access to community dams, whereby they can actually put their fish cages and start fish farming in cages. So there are various methods that can be utilized, but the prime or bottom line of everything is availability of constant supply of water, so that aquaculture can take place.
If you are just joining us, a conversation on the exchange this evening, we're talking all about aquaculture and how we can unpack opportunities and the expansion of aquaculture in Zimbabwe. My guest is Ms. Irene Chinanga. She's with the Fisheries and Aquaculture Resources Division. Now coming back to you, Ms. Chinanga, fish farming has been described as a climate-smart agriculture activity. What does this mean, and how can communities adapt to things like recurring droughts, the El Nino phenomenons, and the changing weather patterns?
Yes. Basically, fish farming is very, very important in the agricultural sector, considering these the changes that are happening due to climate change. So there are climate smart technologies that can also be employed in the fisheries and aquaculture sector to actually ensure that production and productivity is also increased. So basically, when we are looking at climate smart technologies that can be employed in aquaculture, here we are looking at since climate change comes in with some changes in hydrological patterns, some changes in temperature patterns, and so forth. We encourage that with such a scenario, we should have greenhouses as a climate smart technology that can be employed by farmers to guard against their stock against adverse weather conditions. Like you would realize that due to climate change, sometimes we have prolonged or extended winter period whereby temperatures tend to be relatively lower than expected for fish growth. So you would realize that by putting in place greenhouses, you'll be trying to regulate the temperatures and promote growth. Also, the introduction of hydroponics is another climate smart technology that can actually be employed to increase stocking densities on a small area, over a small area, and also try to make maximum utilization of the available water. Then, in terms of feeding and nutrition, you would realize that other climate smart technologies that can be employed include the use of black soldier fly larvae as a source of protein in fish diets that can be formulated to try and minimize costs of production. So basically, these together can actually ensure that aquaculture becomes profitable despite challenges that can be met due to the effect of climate change.
So now we move from the climate change. We've talked about food security. We've talked about the economic benefit, but another important aspect here is the markets. As production is increasing, are there sufficient markets and processing facilities to absorb the growing output from fish farmers? Because it's also important to note that the numbers have grown of fish farmers from 700 to 8,000. Is there enough of a market, or is the market big enough to absorb and process all of this product?
Yes, thank you very much for this important question. I think it's going to give some insights to our farmers out there to have an understanding of how the market situation, fish market situation is like here in Zimbabwe. Recently, our division of fisheries and aquaculture resources production, together with agricultural marketing authority, managed to conduct a market study. A pilot market study was conducted here in Harare and in Mutare. The reason why we had to focus to put our focus in Harare and Mutare, it's because in Harare that's where most of the fish products are being absorbed, and also in Mutare, Manicaland is the aquaculture hotspot in the country, where we have the highest number of aquaculture activities happening. So basically, based on that market study that we conducted, we managed to come up with a market strategy that was recently launched, and this market strategy is going to be implemented from year 2026 to year 2030. So within this market strategy, which is yet to be published, of course, for everyone to have access to it, but basically within the market strategy, we have realized that our farmers have some challenges in terms of uh, facilities such as processing plants, such as cold storage facilities, particularly those in rural communities. So, with this market strategy, we are going to cluster farmers into relevant clusters so that we come up with aggregation centers. And these aggregation centers, we expect that they are going to be equipped with the relevant facilities that will ensure that there is minimum post-harvest losses. So that's our processing plants, that's our cold chain facilities. So basically, to pilot this in Mutare, we are going to have pilot cold chain facility that is going to be storing fish from the clusters that we have in the 7 districts of Manicaland province. As we pilot this in Manicaland, we expect to replicate the same model across all the provinces of Zimbabwe, where infrastructure tends to be limited. Infrastructure in terms of storage facilities as well as cold chain. So within that strategy, again, we also, the study that we conducted, we realized also that our small scale fish farmers are basically and generally producing fish that are really relatively below the the market sizes of fish that is required by the major off-takers of fish. So we have ensured that we accelerate the training programs through our government departments responsible for agricultural extension to ensure that we build the capacity of our farmers and also equip them with market information to say the market requires fish sizes that range from in average of 300 grams to 600 grams. That's one thing the farmers need to understand. And the major off-takers, according to the market study that we conducted, include the Horeca, that's our hotels, restaurants, and canteens. We also have some wholesalers who also buy fish in bulk and sell in smaller quantities. We also have supermarkets under the umbrella retailers. So we also have some informal traders. They are also contributing significantly in providing market for fish. So this information has been packaged and is ready to be disseminated to the farmers to know what the market actually requires. So we have also realized that the major fish species that is required on the market is our farmed tilapia. That is our bream. Is the most fish species that is required on the market. Average sizes ranging from 300 grams to 600 grams. And as government, we are also proactive in trying to find support to support these small scale fish farmers who are scattered around the country so that they can have access to facilities which will ensure that there are minimum post-harvest losses when they harvest their fish. So the aggregation centers will be having in place processing plants, cold chain facilities to ensure that farmers have clear access to the market.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for such a comprehensive outlook. Now, we're fast running out of time. Before I let you go, maybe a look at the future. If Zimbabwe is to build $1 billion aquaculture industry, what is required? What does that look like in closing?
So basically, when we are looking at the fisheries and aquaculture sector, it has a potential to get to around 3.7 billion US dollars. But us as a country, we have set our target to a 1 billion US dollar economy by year 2030. And for this to be achievable, we need a conducive environment that will support the growth of the sector in terms of governance related issues, in terms of resource supply and availability for farmers. From the aquaculture frame survey that we conducted, we realized that 90% of fish producers in the country are small scale farmers. And as such, they need to be supported in terms of resources, because resources tend to be the major constraints that are actually being faced by farmers. Resources in terms of input. When we are looking at inputs, basically we need quality fingerlings on the market. We need affordable and quality fish feed on the market. We also need availability of other necessary equipment such as plastics, nets, and so forth to be available in closer proximity to the farmers. So basically, the government, together with other developing partners such as the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations under the Fish for ACP project, have supported the initiative to establish some fingerling hubs to ensure that fingerlings are accessed closer to where farmers are. So currently we have two fingerling hubs, one in Manicaland, Mutasa district, and the other one in Mashingo district in Mashava. And these have been upgraded to become one-stop shops for the supply of other relevant equipment and materials that are required by farmers. So when farmers have access to these inputs, and if they can actually access them at relatively affordable prices, we can actually foresee our aquaculture sector growing and contributing to the significantly to the national GDP. So our main target is to ensure that we get to a USD 1 billion 2030. The environment has to be conducive for the farmers. Inputs have to be readily available. The government is working tirelessly to ensure that all sector constraints are addressed. And also there are some interventions which also the government is also doing in ensuring that the sector grows into $1 billion economy. And as such, we have programs such as the Presidential Community Fisheries Scheme that is actually supporting fish production. And in the previous year 2025, the government, through the Presidential Community Fisheries Scheme, has managed to stock 34 dams. So basically in Zimbabwe, we have so many dams, 10,700 dams that we have in the country, and we are in the effort to try and ensure that these dams, since they are now vulnerable to issues like climate change, issues like overfishing, issues like IUU fishing, and so forth, there is a program to ensure that these dams are restocked so that there is some economic activities, food security and nutrition issues being addressed at community level. So these are some of the interventions that the government is also doing. The village business unit model, where we are seeing 35,000
maybe
villages.
I can come in there, Ms. Chinanga. We've fast run out of time, but thank you so much for being on the program. And we can see that there's a lot happening. We may have to have a part 2 of this discussion. But thank you so much for the expansive discussion and description of the opportunities that lie in aquaculture. Thanks so much for your time and your insights. Have a good evening.
Wow.
Thanks so much. That's Ms. Irene Chinanga, Fisheries and Aquaculture Resources Division. With that, it's exactly 8 o'clock. It's time for the news.
She explains and clarifies your Rosetta Stone to understanding legalese. She is Rumbidzai Venge on Capital 100.4 FM.